How do you know if your insurance upline or agency or IMO is robbing you? The truth is they probably are. Most people are in a situation where they're giving up a significant portion of their compensation for they don't even know what they're giving it up for. Well, I know when I was in this industry and first got started over 12 years ago, I remember that I didn't really understand how this works. And so what I want to do is share with you how it works, because if I'd have known back then what I know now, man, would things be different. I remember the very first time I made $30,000 in a year doing this business. And that wasn't my first year. The problem was that when I made $30,000 personally, I actually produced over $100,000 that year. And $30,000 was just what the people, my uplines, my agency, and IMO thought should be my cut. And yet I was the one going out and doing all the work. And now what I've come to realize is that's not how things should be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you the 5 basic areas of the business that are really going to provide value to your business. And if you are doing these 5 areas currently, then the truth is that you shouldn't be paying somebody else any of your money because you're the one doing the work. So the 5 areas are as follows. You got prospecting, fact finding, case design, closing, and follow-up. These are the 5 areas that if you can do these 5 areas by yourself, there's not a reason to have anyone else get involved or take any of the compensation that you are producing. Let's talk first about prospecting. This is the one I'm going to spend the longest time on because this is the area where you have the most likelihood of an agency or IMO providing you actual value. So prospecting is at the core of everybody's business. It's finding a person to talk to. This is one of the most valuable things there is in this business, is having enough people to talk to. It's something a lot of people struggle with, but not every single person. So here's the thing. There's 2 types of prospecting. There's prospecting where you spend time, and there's prospecting where you spend money. These are the only 2 types of prospecting that exist. If you are doing a type of prospecting that requires time, probably something like, oh, you're talking to your warm market, or you're standing at a booth somewhere, or doing something to that nature, you're making social media posts over and over and over again, hoping somebody will notice you. If you're doing those things, those are time spent, truthfully, there's not a lot of value in those because you could do those things by yourself without anybody else. Therefore, your need to give them your money for the work that you're doing doesn't make any sense. So let's talk about prospecting technique number 2. This is the technique where you spend money to get people to talk to. It could be seminars or mailers or Facebook ads or any type of advertising or buying leads. All of these areas where you're spending money to get leads, this is an area where you can get a lot of value from a company. Now, that only is true if the company is spending their dollars to get these leads and they are giving you these leads at no charge. Now, if they are saying, hey, we have a program where you can buy leads from us at $15 a name, $200 a name, you can go work those leads and then you can make closes. Those leads are of no value. In matter of fact, they're probably making money on the leads you're buying, whether you close them or don't, and they're making money when you close them. The reason why I say they're no value, you're the one taking the risk, you're the one putting up the money, and if you don't close them, you're the one who's out money. The company you're working for is not out any money if you don't close the lead you spent money on. So if you're spending your money marketing, you could likely buy those same leads cheaper or better elsewhere at the same cost. Therefore, the need to give them any type of compensation for the fact that you're spending your own money in marketing doesn't make sense. Now again, if they are providing you leads that you do not pay for, there's significant value there, and they might be able to be valued at some amount of money. You just then have to take a look and say, well, how much would I produce if I did these leads on my own? And do I want to go find a way to produce these leads myself or buy these leads elsewhere? That's the question you need to ask yourself. But if they're not providing you leads for free, and they're either requiring you to spend your own money in advance to get these leads, to get this marketing system, to get whatever else, then the value isn't coming from them from the prospecting area. So that's prospecting. Next, we're going to move on to fact finding. Fact finding is the same as how to run a first appointment. Once you've learned the skills or the conversation or the script of what you need to say in that first appointment, learning that is a very important skill, how to run that. When you're green, you really need that. But once you become seasoned, you've run that script 100, 1,000 times, you're no longer getting value from them because you know the script. Do you owe it to them to stay with them forever and work for them forever because they taught you a skill? Or now that you have this skill down, can you go out and do other things? And no longer do they deserve to have some of your money because you're the one doing it and you know how to do this. They're no longer teaching you. They may even be asking you to teach other people this script and sales script, in which case the value you're receiving from having the script has diminished over time. Therefore, the value you're receiving is not the same as it was when you started, meaning maybe you should be looking for something else. The reason I keep bringing this up, guys, is because I've asked myself as I've changed from company to company to company, what could I be doing? What should I be doing? And just let me tell you this one thing here, because I didn't say at the beginning of the video. In our business, 100% is not 100%. I'm going to revisit that at the end and tell you what compensation actually looks like, so you know what to actually look for in the industry when you're looking for new contracts and new companies. What are the things you should be looking for? But next is this case design. Once you've learned how to run a first appointment, gather the information, you've already got the skill set. So if they're not teaching you right now on how to do that, the value isn't there. Case design. Who's designing your case is not calling up someone saying, hey, I want to sell this guy an annuity for 100 grand. Which annuity should I use? Anybody will give you that. What I'm talking about is they're taking your case, showing you how the taxes fit together with the 401ks and the IRAs and how the pieces fit together. Now, you might go, wow, I've never done that. No one's ever taught me that. That's because you haven't honestly gotten great training. You've just been told to sell a product that makes them a bunch of money. So if someone else besides you isn't designing your cases for you or even training you on how to do case design, you're not getting value for that portion of your business. You're probably designing the cases yourself, and then you're going back and presenting that case to the client, and you're closing the case on your own. If they're not sending somebody to close the client for you, and you're doing closing, so you've found the client, you've talked to the client, you've got them interested, you've designed the case for them, and now you've closed the client. The question is, no one's done anything else for you. Why do they deserve any money from you? Last piece is follow-up, right? Who does the paperwork for the client? When the insurance carrier wants new paperwork from the client or wants something followed up, do you have to make that call to the client? Do you have to make the call and send it to the insurance carrier? Or do you have to deal with all that stuff? Or does somebody else take care of it for you? Because if you're handling all that paperwork as well, you're running every stage of the business, from marketing to closing to follow-up, which means that all of the compensation should belong to you. So if you're not getting over 100% and you're doing all that work, then you are being robbed by whoever your upline is. Now, there's a lot of conversations about recruiting. I'm going to make another video about that next week because recruiting is fantastic if done correctly. Most people just do it wrong. But let's go ahead real quickly and talk about what should you be getting if you're doing all of this work. If you're prospecting on your own, you're doing the fact finding, you're doing the case design, you're doing the closing, and you're doing the follow-up, what's the contract you should be getting? Well, in our industry, there's two types of contract. There's what's called a street level contract, and then there's what's called back-end money. And a lot of companies will not even tell you that there's back-end money. They talked about how much they're giving you feeling magnanimous, but we're giving you 60%. We're giving you 80%. We're giving you 90% of what? The problem is that they can be very sneaky about what their contract is. They could be giving you 60% of 100% when the street level contract is 110%, and there's another 30% that you can get on back end, meaning they're getting a 140% contract and they're giving you 60% of 100%. Or maybe they're giving you 80% of 100%. You might even be getting 105% from your IMO. You might be getting 110% from your IMO and be like, I have the highest contract available. No, because there's additional money that they haven't told you about. They got 140 contract because they're getting the back end money and they're giving you 105. So when you go close those deals, they're still making 30%. They're making a third of what you're making. And what are they doing for you? If they are not providing to you in those 5 areas in a significant way where they're spending their money or they're helping you close those deals you would not close on your own, then they do not deserve to get that money from you. That's what I've realized and why I've started to really get focused on how can I give the agent who's doing the work the money. That's what we focused on with a couple of my partners, is building an agency where the guy who does the work gets the money. Now, don't get me wrong. Recruiting is fantastic. That's something I've really started to look heavily into, is recruiting. But to start recruiting, you have to have something that's good to begin with before you start bringing people into it. And the simple philosophy that the guy doing the work is the guy who deserves the money is at the core of everything that I personally believe. Because if I'm not bringing you value, I don't deserve to get paid, right? And just like if somebody's not bringing you value, they don't deserve to get paid. So if you're doing those 5 things, you're doing your own prospecting, you're doing your own meetings, you're doing your own case design, you're doing your own closing, and you're doing your own follow-up, and somebody has their hand in your pocket taking your money, then you are getting robbed. And like I said, when I was getting robbed, my first year I made $30,000, I produced over $100,000 of commission. They thought my share should be 30 and their share should be 70 because they taught me to get into the business. And I'm like, but I did all the work on these cases this year. I deserve the money, and that would have been life-changing for me at that point. My family was struggling and starving, and I didn't even get a third of the money that I produced. Had I gotten that $100,000, the life would have been completely different for my family. And that's what really matters, guys. So if you're questioning yourself, am I getting robbed? Is it really worth it? And you're doing those 5 things and you're not getting value in those 5 areas, the answer is yes, you're getting robbed. And like I said, contracts are often higher. They're, on life insurance, 140, 110, 130, 140 are very common contracts. I've seen them as high as 180 with certain carriers. If you're taking a look at annuities and you're not getting 7.5 or 8 on annuities, then they're shaving off the top of those 2 and telling you, oh, the contract's 5, the contract's 6. No, they're getting a 7 and an 8, and they're giving you a lower contract and taking money on the back end. They're giving you 80% or 60% of 6, and they're getting 7.5. So they're taking some off the top of what you know they're taking, and there's more money they're taking on the back end. So the truth is, if you don't know what the contracts really are, odds are you're getting taken for a lot more than you even realize.